Hello and welcome to 2-4. Today we're going to be talking about multiplication patterns. This is kind of a neat little chart to look at. So just kind of look at it and see if you can gather some things from it. We're going to go more into detail, but I thought it was a really neat little scenario, little picture for you. Our goal today is that we're going to be able to use basic facts and patterns to multiply multiples of 10, 100, and 1,000 mentally. Okay, so kind of working on some number sense today. Let's get started. Okay, our first example we're going to look at says, Pet Paws is ordering more goldfish to sell at their store. Each goldfish costs $2. Use the table to determine the cost of 10, 100, and 1,000 goldfish. Describe the pattern in the number of zeros when multiplying the cost, $2, by powers of 10. All right, so when I'm looking at this here, I see in my table, I've got the cost of one goldfish is remaining the same. It's a constant. It's constantly $2. So our variable here that we're multiplying by is a different power of 10. Okay, so 2 times 1 is 2, which gets the number of zeros in the product. There are no zeros in that product. Okay. Right? Because there's no zeros in the number 2. So this will make more sense when we do another one. 2 times 10 is 20. Okay, so the number of zeros in that product is 1. 2 times 100 is 200. Number of zeros is 2. 2 times 1,000 is 2,000. So the number of zeros in that product is 3. And I guess what I want to say is, you don't need to write this stuff down. This is kind of like some background knowledge stuff. When we get to the guided practice part, and I'll say that we're in the guided practice, then you can write those examples down. But this is kind of, I just want you to watch and listen and try to make sense of what I'm saying, okay? So if we go below, it says the number of zeros in the product increases when the power of 10 increases. Each successive, so each next power of 10, adds 1 0 to the product. Okay, so when I went from 1 to 10, I added a 0. When I went from 10 to 100, I added a 0. When I went from 100 to 1,000, I added a 0 each time. So each time I'm going up, I'm adding 1 0. Okay, so how many zeros are in the product of 7 and 100? There's going to be 2. Because look at 2 zeros in 100. How many zeros are in the product of 21 and 10? 1, because there's 1 10. Okay, so there's going to be 1 0 on the end. If I'm multiplying by 100, there's going to be 2 zeros on the end. If I'm going to multiply by 1,000, there's 3 zeros, so I'm going to add 3 zeros to my 12. Okay, so this is just kind of number sense. And you don't have to write it all out. You don't have to think about it really hard when we're multiplying by 10, 100, 1,000. And so on. I mean, this works for 10,000, 100,000, million, 10 million. It's just all the number of zeros you're going to add to what you're starting with. Okay, so let's look at this a little deeper. Okay, so if I wanted to find 13 times 10 to the second power mentally. So 10 to the second power is really, again, it is a 1 with 2 zeros, or 100. 10 to the second power is 100. Okay, so it says, write 10 to the second power without exponents. So it'd just be 100. Okay, right here. So we're doing 13 times 10 to the second power. If I write it without exponents, just 13 times 100. Okay, then it tells us to count the number of zeros in the power of 10. 2 zeros. 2. Okay, compare the number of zeros to the exponent of, look at that exponent right there, guys. There they are, that little 2, and there are 2 zeros. They are the same. Look at that. The exponent and the number of zeros in 100 are the same. Look at that, guys. Write the 0 to the right of 13. Oh, zeros, yeah, because they're supposed to be 2. We're multiplying by 100. Multiplying by 2. So we had put 2 zeros, so the product is 1,300. There we go. Okay, so let's do another one. Find 40 times 7,000 mentally. Okay, now, that sounds a little tricky, but watch, it's not as tricky as it seems. 4 times 7 is 28, right? So I'm just taking the first digit, and that's 28, and then I'm counting how many zeros do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I have, 1 0 and 3 zeros, so there are a total of 4 zeros. Write the zeros to the right of the product from step 1. So I have a 28. That's where I got my 28 by multiplying 4 and 7. So I'm having my 28, and then I should have 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the product is 280,000. Okay? So this is a really handy tool to have. You don't have to write out all these zeros. Like if you were multiplying this longhand, you'd be writing a ton of zeros all over the place. Like, look, you can do it in your head, or relatively in your head. It doesn't have to be all in your head, right? But this is really a great tool. So let's look at these. The next slide is the examples I want you to write down. Okay, so it says find each product mentally. So first I'm looking at 8 times 10 to the second power. 10 to the second power is really worth 100, or 1 with 2 zeros. Okay, so the total number of zeros is 2. So 8 times 10 to the second power is just that 8 with 2 zeros, 800. All right, because really I was doing 8 times 100, so it's 800. This is just kind of all different way of thinking of things, okay? So 14 times 2,000, our basic multiplication fact is 14 times 2, right? So we're just taking the whole numbers that aren't zeros in the front. 14 times 2, I'd get 28. Okay, so the total number of zeros there are 3. 3 zeros. So I have 3 zeros here. Okay. So 14 times 2,000 is my 28 that I got by multiplying the numbers in the front. And then I have to have 3 zeros. So my final answer is 28,000. Okay, this really isn't so bad, but I think it's good number sense, so we're going to practice it. But anyways, thanks for watching.